When I was young, I lived on a farm in rural Oregon with my parents. I was the only child, and we weren't a big commercial farm, just a family type thing. We had 5 cows, 3 horses, a small herd of goats, 2 dogs, 1 chicken coop, and we also had some Indian runner ducks. We kept those mostly as pets. We didn't really make any money off of the place. We just earned enough to sustain the animals and a little extra for ourselves. Money enough to take a decent vacation every couple of years. Dad had his other job in town as an insurance agent. He was the only one around, really. The town wasn't more than 1,500 people. Mom gave horse riding lessons as well, and we weren't rich, but we were comfortable. It was really an easy life, or at least it could have been a lot worse. I went to school, Dad went to work, Mom took care of the animals, and we all had dinner together every night. I would go to bed while Mom and Dad would have a couple beers and watch the news. Sometimes at night I would hear things outside, mostly just normal stuff. The cows or horses would get spooked by a coyote, or I would hear the dogs chasing a rabbit. Every once in a great while we would find a chicken dead. Dad would always tell me about it, but never let me see the body, although I asked frequently. He would keep Mom and me inside until he had gone out and did what he needed to do with the body, throw sawdust over any blood. And then life would go on as normal. I assumed it was foxes. I had seen a couple of them out in the pasture over the years, slinking around back and forth through the grass. The summer when I was 10 years old, I remember helping Mom change the bedding of the horse stalls when we heard a huge racket. If you've never heard the sound of a horse in pain, you don't want to. Trust me, it sounds almost like a person screaming. Well, that was what we heard, and one of our horses came running into the barn with a wound on its left thigh, and 4 long marks like claw marks ran across its body for about a foot. It had blood running down its leg, and it was limping. I was scared. I'd never seen that much blood. Mom looked at the horse in the stall and made me go inside with one of the dogs. She told me to lock the door and stay inside until she came in to get me, and I did. Eventually, Mom came inside and told me that the horse had hurt itself on the barbed wire that ran the perimeter of the pasture. We owned more land beyond that, but most of it was forest. I guess I believed her at the time, but at dinner that night I noticed that Dad was being particularly quiet and Mom was talking a lot more than she normally did. She was being really animated. I noticed that Dad had gotten his rifle and set it by the back door. Usually he only did that when the coyotes had been acting up. That night I went to bed as normal, but I had trouble falling asleep. I turned my desk lamp on and decided to read some comic books until I got tired. As I was reading, I heard the back door open. Looking out, I could see my dad by the porch light, lighting a cigarette and holding his rifle under his arm. He started walking over to the driveway and turned to follow the fence line. I couldn't sleep until I knew he was back inside. I kept coming downstairs with the excuse of getting water to see if Dad was back yet. Each time, all I saw was Mom sitting on the couch in the living room, looking worried, sighing once in a while. Eventually, at about 4 in the morning, I think Dad did come back inside. I was so tired and relieved that I fell asleep as soon as I knew he was home. He'd never told me what he did that night, but I never thought to ask. 2 months later, I was back in school, and it rains a lot in Oregon in the fall, and this day was no different. All I could hear from my bedroom was rain hitting the ground and the aluminum roof of the chicken coop. There was light thunder in the distance, but it was slowly getting closer. I thought I'd heard a coyote yapping out around the garage, or it could have been one of the dogs. I looked out, straining my eyes to see whatever there may have been. In a brief, distant lightning flash, I saw something. It looked almost like a person, but hunched over with a long torso. It was tall, taller than Dad, who was a good 6'4" at least. I just barely caught a glimpse of it near the side of the garage. Then the light faded and I didn't see it again. There was another dead chicken the next morning, the third in just as many weeks. I told Dad what I had seen the previous night, and the color went out of his cheeks for a moment. Then he told me that the storm must have been playing tricks on me. 4 months after that, we lost a cow. It was the middle of the night, and we all woke up at the same time. There was a lot of noise in the pasture, but only briefly. The cry of a dying animal, and the primitive guttural yell that I had never heard before. Dad rushed up to my room. I could hear him running up the steps to my door. He had his rifle in hand, opened the door. He saw I was awake and told me to stay inside no matter what and try to go back to sleep. I don't think I have to say that sleep wasn't really an option. But I did stay in my room with the blanket held tight around my shoulders, staring out the window. Probably about 10 minutes later, I heard gunshots in the field. I don't know what he was shooting at, whether it was whatever had attacked the cow or the cow itself to put the animal out of its misery. Dad rarely ever talked of that night. I later found out that he had gotten to the cow only to find it ripped open on the ground, bleeding out from its torso. The shots I heard were him shooting the cow in the head. It kept going on like that for years. A chicken or a duck here and there, something bigger only very rarely. It sounds absurd, but I almost came to think of it as commonplace. I only ever caught glimpses of the thing until what comes next. It happened in the middle of the day over the course of a long weekend. My parents had gone to Seattle to see my uncle who was ill. It was on a Saturday afternoon. I was 17 years old. I was out in the barn, putting food out for the horses and the dogs. And the horses were running around in the pasture, and the dogs were asleep in the corner of one of the horse stalls. I heard something rustling in the tall grass outside of the pasture, and the dogs looked around a little bit but didn't seem to mind. I assumed it was just one of the horses waiting for me to leave so that they could eat. I kept going about what I was doing, and in about several minutes I thought I heard some heavy breathing behind me. I turned around to look at whatever was making the noise, and there it was, standing in the doorway, tall as hell, even hunched over. The sun was streaming in behind it, lighting up all the dust in the air around it like some kind of sickly halo. It was looking at me, considering maybe it was trying to decide whether or not I was food. I remember swearing, turning, and running as fast as I could to the house, not even thinking, panic causing my legs to move. I heard it behind me. It wasn't even breathing hard. I heard its feet hitting the ground in a constant rhythm. I got to the house, opened the door, slammed it behind me, and locked it as fast as I could. I tore through the house, locking every door, drawing all the blinds on every window. I could hear it snarling outside at the back door. The dogs were barking at it, but they didn't try to attack the thing. It was too big, and they knew it. It roared at the dogs, and they ran off, probably to hide in the pasture. I went to my parents' room, got my dad's rifle. I loaded it up, set it on the chair in the living room, facing the back door, waited. It started prowling around the house. I could hear its feet churning the gravel on the driveway, and its weight making the wooden planks at the back deck creak. It kept walking back and forth. I thought about trying to look out the window to see it, but I was too scared. Eventually, after hours of hoping it would go away, the sun went down. I turned on all the lights outside and went up to my room, opened my window with the rifle in hand, hoping to be able to pick the thing off from above. I saw it lurking just beyond the glow of the porch light. It had long, spindly arms and walked on bent knees. It was by the chicken coop, and then it disappeared from view. I heard the chickens squawking. Then the thing reappeared with a dead, bloody chicken in its hands, bit off one of the wings, and then let the dead bird drop to the ground at its feet. Then it looked at me. Its eyes made contact with mine. It turned away and went back to the chickens. It came back with another bird, mutilated in front of me, dropped it, went back again and again. I should have taken the shot, but I was astounded and confused, trying to figure out what it was doing. Then it hit me. It was a show of power. It was showing me that it was stronger than me, that it could do whatever it wanted to, because I couldn't stop it. At the same time, I felt powerless and sickened. Powerless because what it was saying was true. If it was just me and that thing, I wouldn't stand a chance. Sickened because I realized what kind of intelligence it would need to be able to convey that message. The thought shook me out of my stupor, and I remembered the rifle at my side. It was heading back to the chickens, and I decided when it came back out, I'd take my shot. It strode back to the porch, almost arrogant. Walking on bended knees with those arms so long that the chicken was nearly dragging on the ground. I raised the rifle up to my eye and tried to steady myself. My heart was beating so hard I could see the rifle shaking ever so slightly in rhythm with each heartbeat. I could hear the pounding in my own ears. It raised the body to its mouth, and just as it was about to bite the chicken's head off, I squeezed the crack of the gun echoed in the now shattered quiet of the nighttime standoff, and I heard it howl. Painful, loud, startled howl. I had hit its shoulder, and it ran off into the night. I didn't see it again, but it was still out there. It still killed chickens and other things more often than before. I'm writing all of this now because my parents died 3 weeks ago. They were killed in a collision with a drunk driver. They left me the farm, and I intend to live here with my own family. I'm 32 now. I work for an Oregon Fish and Game office in Salem. I've married a wonderful woman named Stephanie. We have one son, Zachary, who is 4 years old, and we're expecting a daughter in 4 months. I've come to the farmhouse alone today. I told Steph that I just wanted some time alone in my parents' house to deal with some emotions. She was very understanding. I've come back to claim what's rightfully mine. I have Dad's rifle next to me on the table. It's almost dusk. I've also brought several portable halogen lights to set up around the house, and my own shotgun. I'm borrowing a handgun from Joe, the guy at Fish and Game who I work with. When I'm done typing this account of my memories, I will print it out and leave it on the dining room table, along with my wedding ring and keys to the safety deposit box, where my will is kept. Everything is loaded and ready. Hopefully I will return here to collect these things, and nobody will ever know that I wrote this. Steph, in the event that you are the unfortunate soul to find this, which I am terrified to think seems the likely outcome, the thought of you having to go on alone hurts me more than anything in this world ever can. Know that I love you more than anything, and that I hope you understand that I'm doing this to keep you safe. Zachary, I love you and can only hope that you grow up to be a good, kind-hearted, and strong man like your grandfather was. To my unborn daughter, if I don't live long enough to meet you, it will be the single greatest regret of my life. Tell the police, tell Fish and Game, call Joe. He's one of the few people who knows about this. Make this situation known. Eventually someone will kill this thing, even if it isn't me. Goodbye.